everybody, it's Design Recharge. What is up with me today, Dee? I can't do it.
I don't know. I'm so famous, I'm making you nervous.
I know, nervous. I'm going to have to go pee. I'll come right back. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, Jose, change it to all panelists and attendees. We're going to cut this part out so that I can get my stuff together. I'm so sorry. I usually just do it. I don't know what it is. You must be making me nervous.
Sorry.
All right. No, it's good. It's good. She's like, I'll just take a sip of my vodka then, Diane. I'm just
How'd
kidding.
you know that? No.
Okay. Here we go.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. I'm your host, Diane Gibbs, and I'm excited to have my friend Dee Ingles on. And just a funny little thing, if you type in Deingles into Google, like Ashley did, who Ashley's my right-hand man, woman here, right? She's not a man, woman. She's just a woman, but that's not the way the term goes. Not that there's anything wrong with man, women. You know what I mean. But Ashley, she was like, Dee Ingles, and Google's like, what would you like to translate into English? And she's like, no, I want the person. Anyway, I thought it was so funny, and I was like, oh, Dee, have you ever heard that? And she's like, no. Anyway, Google kept asking her what she wanted to translate. I thought it was funny. Hey, funny. Demi, great to have you. All right, so we are Spain, we've got England, we've got a lot of Americans here. I'm excited to have everybody. Got some new people. If you're new, in the chat, if you click chat, and then you can do all panelists and attendees, and then that way we will all be able to see what you're writing and tell us where you're coming in from. That'd be great because it's a family here. So I'm super excited to have Dee. I've learned a ton from Dee. She's a super good friend, and the more you type, the more chances you have to win the sticker pack. There's an amazing sticker pack that we will go through, and it has to do with how many times you're in the chat. So you better be chatting it up. If you want to win these amazing stickers, I have tons of them already. And like one of them is this, but it's not a koozie. You're not getting a koozie. You're just getting a sticker pack, but it is of this. And then anyway, we're going to talk about all kinds of things. So Dee, you have been a designer. You've actually owned your own business for how many years?
Almost 30.
Almost 30. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want you to, if you can, give us a little bit of your background, what you did for most of those 30 years, and then your business has shifted in the last few years, right? Which is kind of weird and scary, probably.
And it's been really cool. You know, it's scary at first because it's different. Then if you just kind of like take it in and see what happens, can be pretty cool.
So when did you start? Were you always like a drawing kid, or?
I was one of those kids in school that I was constantly doodling, creative, imaginative thinking. I didn't really feel like school was meant for me. I'm more of a tactile, do it physically kind of learner. And in school, you're made to sit down and memorize and recite and sit still. That wasn't a good fit for me. So I forgot what your question was.
Oh, that's okay. It wasn't a good fit for me either.
Okay.
So I was sitting still. And I was very talkative. So that was not a great fit for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, but luckily my mom's pretty talkative, so I didn't really get in a ton of trouble. But I always got N's in conduct, and N's was needs improvement.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, forever. But I actually feel like it was a blessing, to be honest. Okay, so I want you to tell me a little bit about your background. So you were a doodling kid, and then did you go to college to study design? Did you go to college? What was kind of like that? And then when did you start your business?
Okay, I've always known I wanted to be a designer. I think from the get-go, my parents are very creative people, and I grew up next door to my grandparents, and so I learned a lot of things from them. After high school, I went to our local community college, which is called Illinois Central College, and was enrolled in the marketing management program, in which I graduated with an associate's. I really wanted to be a graphic designer, but I think my parents were like, you're not going to really make a living doing that. So let's do this marketing thing, which is great. It gave me a good foundation, but then I went back to school and took about 3 semesters of graphic design. That's where I met my husband, at school. I didn't know it, but that's where I met him.
So was he in design classes with you?
Mm-hmm. He was a really good illustrator, really good at graphic design. I didn't really talk to him. I was very introverted, so I would just watch him from afar. He was a bit of a chatty Cathy. And I'm like, how's this guy get anything done? He's always talking. You know, who knew, right? Down the road, we'd be married, what, like 28, 29, 30 years, something like that now. It's
That's
crazy.
hilarious.
It's crazy.
It is funny where some people are chatty and then you're like, how is he getting this stuff done? Anyway, okay, so that's a whole nother part. I don't even know when y'all got married. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. But
okay.
All right, so you then when did you start your business? Like, did you go to work? What was like the beginning of your career like?
Okay, so out of college, I had various jobs, like working for a small newspaper. But my biggest job that I feel like started my career was working at a company called Multi-Ad Services. It was here in Peoria. It started in the 50s. They're now in business as a company called Quickie, where they do all the food photography for places like Walmart and keep track of data and things like that. So it's obviously grown. And that's where I met John personally, and then we started dating. So after Multi-Ad, I was there for like 4 years, and I moved on to a company called PGS Publications, Crafts Magazine, where I got to art direct photography for the actual craft features in the magazine, and then lay the magazine out. From that, I was pregnant with my second child. And so John and I talked, and we decided that I would just start freelancing. And so I left there and started freelancing and raising the kids. And here we are 23 years later.
Okay, so that's really difficult though, because when you're freelancing, you're running a business and you're trying to take care of kids. So how did that work? Like meeting with clients? Was it mostly virtual? Was it mostly clients you'd already had? Were these retainer clients? What did that look like?
So one of my biggest clients was, I think, somebody that's on here today. Her name's Rosemary, and she was my boss at PGS Pubs, and she ended up transitioning to a big medical complex. She was the marketing director. So I did a lot of freelance for her. So it was already kind of a smooth path into being that freelancer person. After she left there and I wasn't really doing a lot of freelance for them anymore, that's when I really kind of came into searching out what I really wanted to do for the rest of my design career.
Okay, so when was that?
I think it was four or 5 years ago. Time is really flying. It's hard to keep track of everything. So I'll say 4 years.
So that was not that far ago. So you had been doing work, you were raising kids. It was kind of like just putting food on the table kind of things, right?
Sure.
Not necessarily super focused on maybe what you loved to do, maybe?
Right. I say I did like the work. I loved the people more that I was working with. Rosemary's a really good friend. And I also had another friend I work with, Lynette, there. So we had all worked at PGS Pubs together, and that was kind of like a family there. So transitioning to a company where I'm doing freelance, I've already got my built-in family. It was great.
Okay, so when in any of that, were you doing packaging?
A little bit. When I was working at Multi-Ed, we did a lot of point of purchase displays, a lot of baseball cards, various different things that the client might need to produce marketing materials for their brand, but not as intensely as I am today.
Okay, so one of the things I love is that, and what ended up as I kept thinking about what we were going to talk about, it was like, and we've talked a lot. So I was
Mhm.
like, oh, but it's like that you really enjoyed this challenge, the challenge of trying to find something that didn't already exist, or that didn't exist in this form, or didn't exist so readily that tons of people were finding it. And there's something in that exploration or that adventure that really attracted you. Not that maybe you didn't have that with the other jobs, but sometimes if you have long term, I've had long term clients that it kind of, things can get stale. And at some point, I'm like, I think we should go with another designer, because I know it's getting me out of a job, but I just feel kind of like burned out either on the subject, or I'm like, I can't think of anything else. And these are for clients that I'd had, for 10, 15 years. Sometimes there have been a time like that for me. I don't know if that's exactly what it was, but when you get a new challenge, like I want you to tell us about this. So
Okay.
this was a transition time for you, right?
Right, definitely.
So what did that look like? Kind of paint the picture, and then if you want to jump into your deck, that'd be great.
Well, so as humans, I think we get really comfortable, and when change happens, it can be a little scary. So when I stopped doing work for the medical complex, you're so used to just having work coming in, and then when that stopped, you're like, okay, what do I want to do now? And here's how much time you have left in your life, and you're thinking, okay, you don't want to mess this up. You want to get it right, and you want to do what you want to do and make an impact in the world. So I ended up joining a co-working space here in Peoria. It's called The Nest. The GPEDC, the Greater Peoria Economic Development Council, sponsors it. So it's an incubator for people who want to start a business. So I had worked in the home studio for about 20 years. And so I was used to working by myself all the time. I think I was always afraid to go out and get my own office, because that was money being spent that could be spent family vacations or some other type of thing. So joining the co-working space was pivotal for me. And that's where I met the owner of Alluvian, John Cowan. Super quiet guy, but the leader of the co-working space at the time is Randon. And he introduced us, and he's like, here's somebody who's a designer, and you have a men's grooming product line. You guys should get together and collaborate. And from there, the rest is history. I was completely hooked on eco-friendly packaging, anything that did something really good for the environment. I just really got into it. And I think while I was preparing the questions you gave me for this podcast, I had the realization that growing up next to my grandparents, and we grew all of our own food, and we spent a lot of time together with them. I realized that meeting John was kind of like untapping what I had experienced with my grandparents of, that getting back to basics, that doing what's right for the earth, that type of thing. It sounds kind of touchy-feely, but I really think it was a clear pivotal moment for me. They say when you meet people, you meet them for a reason. And I like to think of meeting him as what sets the trajectory for the rest of my career.
All right. So you learned a ton, but it wasn't that you just had all these people that you could learn from. You actually had to dig and you had to solve things. And he was very open. He knew he had some very clear parameters, but he also said budget is no issue. But because of your grandparents, right? You're like,
Exactly.
hey, buddy, I know that there is always a limit to every budget, right? People might not pay $80 for a thing of deodorant, right?
Right.
So I think it's really important. And I love that you don't use the word cheap, you use the word frugal, right?
Yeah.
Or creative in how you do it. So if you want to share your screen, she's got some stuff to teach us. I'm going to ask some continued questions about the challenge, because I think that there's something really interesting about that and how you solve some of these problems.
Okay. Would you like me to just narrate as we go through the pages?
Please.
Okay. So this is a deck I built. It's basically a case study for alluvian aquatic botanical grooming. So meeting John was very interesting in that he had all of these products and they needed containers. And by the way, nothing can be in plastic. Wow, right? So here we go. So this is just
Difficult. That's a really difficult thing in any kind of grooming, because usually it's plastic. I mean, everything, our deodorant, the shave gel, everything.
right. And that's what consumers expect. So anything that isn't plastic might seem a little bit different to them. So Alluvian's motto is 100% plastic free, like we said, made in the USA and organic. And so not using plastic meant we had to consider things like paper tubes, glass vessels, and labels. So the picture that you're looking at right now was a glass bottle that we designed. John, my husband, actually drew the illustration that's on it. And we worked with a glass company to make sure that the bottle was going to hold the right amount of liquid and have a metal cap instead of a plastic cap. A lot of the things that we designed were in paper tubes. These are some samples from the company that we used, Westrock. You can see there's lots of different options, sizes, for anything from a chapstick to maybe holding a candle, just for some extra packaging. So setting up the paper tubes was a little challenging because you're designing a three-dimensional object on a flat piece of paper. So you have to think of how it sits on the shelf. So there's a lot of time spent making sure that what was seen from the front was easy to identify. You think about men looking for products. The men that I know don't really want to look at a lot of text or read a lot of things. So I made it very identifiable by using a very sans serif font. It's easy to see on the shelf. And then the ingredients are on the back and the address. And the tube itself has a push-up mechanism on the bottom. So the deodorant had to be made so that it wasn't too soft and it wasn't too hard. So to help the consumer understand how this actually works, because it's not a plastic typical deodorant container, we put press here on the bottom. So they need to push it up, kind of like a push pop when you have like an ice cream push pop as a kid.
But this was something that you actually helped. He didn't come up with that. He just said, I had deodorant and you can't use plastic. Good luck, right?
I don't really remember, because he had already been in touch with this company. So he may have already been doing this. So I don't want to take credit for that. I'll take credit for making it look good and making it.
Did you put push press here? Was that your idea?
I think so.
Well, we'll just claim it. I mean, I'm sure he won't watch. She did it all, people.
Okay. Sorry, John.
Paul wants to know, how did you deal with the regulatory requirements for the product? Now, this is actually super interesting because you actually had multiple countries. He's now in multiple countries. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So what I learned from John was that in the United States, as long as you don't have something that's medicinal, as long as you have the ingredients on it and a date, you're fine. But when you go out of the country, we worked in the UK and we worked in Canada. And basically, John had a liaison over there that could say, hey, go look at this site. It has a list of requirements. They were much more intensive. We had to have shelf life on the packaging. We had to have the native language, a couple different languages actually, and I think a tamper seal as well. So it was a little bit different. So if you're designing products for one company or one country, excuse me, remember that there may be some stricter guidelines in other countries.
And size of font too, right?
Yeah, that was interesting, I thought. So the size of the font in, I think it was Canada, you can't have a font that's smaller than, I think, 7 point. So that was a really tricky restriction, because when you're trying to do a list of ingredients on a very tiny bottle, it gets a little challenging. So in those cases, we ended up using a paper tube to rest those bottles in, to give us a little bit more real estate to be able to talk about and have maybe an increased sense of value, because it was a larger thing that they were picking up.
So, but then also what about printing? Like, is this printed? Because this doesn't look like it's a label.
Yeah, so all the bottles were silkscreen to avoid that plastic component.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're printing on a bottle, you have size requirements that you can't go past because the silk pad that's printing onto the bottle can only hold so much detail. So I worked very closely with the bottle printer to make sure that we were making things visible and legible and not trying to put too much on the front of the bottle. It was a little challenging. The glass was the most challenging.
Well, and they're so small.
They are. And then each, like he had he has 7 different scents. So how do you say 7 different scents on 7 tiny bottles? And so we just chose to do different font styles. So for one, we may have Isle of Man has one font, and what is it? The other one I can't think. Chickaw or Chico Picu. He has very manly names. We would choose a different font so that they would see that it's different right off the bat if they picked up the bottle, if it wasn't sold in the paper tube.
Nice.
We tried to make it easy so that as you're shopping, it wasn't a chore to shop.
I love that because that's really understanding your user, right?
Yeah. How many guys really want to go out and read tiny, tiny type? I want what I want. I gotta go.
Yeah, I'm kind of
So
with them on
yeah,
that.
me
Yeah.
too. So these are the 2 glass vessels that we used, the brown bottle to hold the oils and the clear bottle to hold the cacao oil.
Okay, so I got another question that's a really good one. Jacob says, what if you want to make eco and plastic free products, but you're a very small business and you can't afford the huge print minimum? Screen printed bottles sounds awesome, but it also sounds expensive.
Well, I think about John being a startup. He never compromised on what he was doing, and so to be able to afford to do things, set up the product the way he wanted to, he got angel investors, and then he also won a competition that's local that helped him get started. So I think when you think about what your brand's going to be all about, if it is something that's plastic free, you kind of have to stick to plastic free. Otherwise, you have to change that positioning statement to be more like, we do have plastic, but we keep it as a closed loop. So all our plastics are recyclable, because plastics do have a place in the world. Not everything can go in glass bottles. We just try to minimize it. So this is a mock-up of what the glass setup looked like. So you have the top of the lid as some real estate, you have the side as some real estate, but then the pad of the silkscreen printer can only go so far. So your real estate is restricted. So you're trying to fit in very important information in a very tiny space. So you're picking that hierarchy of what you want people to see first, and that's the name of the product, then the name of the company, and then reverse the label in your hand and the ingredients.
This is again small, right? And you have this little die cut. So all these just extra little added things that elevate the brand. And it also looks like maybe I'm sure you used maybe a recycled paper, but is it just colored?
This is all printed. This is all ink.
Oh, wow.
We printed in 2 colors, the dark brown and the pink.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And then the metal lid is printed as well with white.
But there is that die cut, right? Where wild something harvested something. Oh, that's nice.
No, that's just me cutting out the pink to make the pink stand out on the bottle. So
it looks like I can see through it on the bottle though.
Yeah. So what you're given is this glass jar, and I try to use the glass jar to my advantage. And so I make the color of what the product is shine through to highlight what the featured component is for the product. So he has wild cacao oil in it, and that's kind of a big deal. It's kind of pricey. So we wanted to make sure that was featured, but not compete with the name of the product. So that's where I cut out the silk screen of the pink band and put the copy there.
But that silk screen, the wild harvested, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Oh yeah, that's
Yep.
super nice.
Yeah.
Whew.
So it was kind of fun, actually, when you're given restrictions as a designer. It kind of pushes you to do your best work, I think. This next slide is a label, and all the labels that we printed for the products that went in metal tins were on recycled paper. This is the Abolus. It's a men's cologne. So you would screw it open and just use a little bit with your warm thumb and put it on your wrist. These are some other labels. These are kind of cool in that the one that has the fish on it, the block next to it is actually a shampoo. So it's a block of hard shampoo, and you lather it in your hands and wash your hair. So the label is made out of sugar cane.
Wow.
So we just tried to do something a little bit different. So utilizing sugar cane for that was kind of cool, because we're reusing something that is sustainable and compostable, and also gives us something to talk about on social media. The Kake lip balm to the right there, John also did, my husband also did the illustration for that, and then I laid out the label. And then John Cowan, the owner, took recycled dictionaries. You can buy old dictionaries because nobody uses a dictionary anymore. And he cut them into strips, and the strips of the old dictionary are the safety tamper seals. So he puts that down around the tin, and then the label seals it shut.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Just another way to be sustainable. And that is a picture that he took. It's beautiful.
So Jeremy, long time watcher, listener, love him. He says, do they have anything to make beards soft? He said,
that's what the beard oil is.
Yep. Okay. Yep. There you go, buddy.
It's good stuff, and it smells great.
Oh, Rosemary asked, didn't he also use shredded dictionaries for packing material?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, that's super clever.
Yeah, he's a smart guy. So this is the label setup. It's like your typical graphic design. You're setting up, instead of a book, you're setting up a label. It's got a circle. You have to stay within the size. The ingredients have to be a certain font size, and then you'll see the can with the lid open that says 12M. That will be for the UK and Canada, so that has a shelf life of 12 months. You'll notice at the bottom of that label, you'll see a couple graphics. Those are his brand differentiators that I drew. One indicates that it's made in the USA. A lot of people are USA proud, and they want to only buy products made in our country. The other one is reinforcing the brand positioning statement of being 100% plastic free. And we did that through what everybody identifies bad plastic as, is water bottles that don't get recycled.
Did you make those? Made in the USA? And then so that's another thing. Instead of just this is an over deliver, because I think that this client is definitely an over deliver, all these extra little bonuses, these details. And I think that's the way you over delivered, was by making your own graphics that normally we just plop out of Brands of the World or something, right? But you chose to go the extra mile and hand lettered it and drew it, right?
I used a font, but I took some embellishment, or I did some embellishments to the font to make it work with what I was trying to twist it to do. I'm not a trained hand letterer, but I did want it to have that, the voice of the brand, in that it's handcrafted and homemade, and I wanted to drive that home. So using that font and twisting it, but then drawing all the other components, like the United States I drew, and the water bottle. And then I think we have 6 other components that talk about, it's cruelty free and organic. And each one of those is a symbol, because if you think about how our brains work, we read a lot of text, but we absorb pictures much more quickly. So I was trying to make the image, the vessel of the text, really drive home what the messaging is. And he uses those on the website, and we use those on almost all the product packaging.
So what part had he done before he got with you? And then where did y'all take over and do kind of everything, and you've been just a partner in this with him? Or
Yeah. So when I met John, he had already started making some products and he was in the process of testing the formula for the deodorant. So he had a wonderful artist, I don't know his name, do the logo. And then he had started doing some of the products like the shaving cream in a tin, and he was designing the labels himself, and they looked really nice. But I think he was looking for something to be more cohesive so that when you picked up one product, the other product, they spoke to each other on the shelf, and they actually created like a nice harmony when they're on the shelf. So the color palettes were chosen so that it spoke mostly to men. I mean, women buy this as well for their guys, but we tried to make it appeal to the gentleman, and we tried to make all of the colors be cohesive and speak together so that when you look at it on the website or on a shelf, they don't jar with each other, they harmonize.
So would this also have been wrapped? Is this one of the things that gets the wrap with the dictionary page, or?
I think he only did that with the lip balm. This one
Okay.
is, I think, was in a box, so the box could be safety sealed.
Oh, gotcha.
So this was where I got really excited, and I know
because why?
Well, we started working with this company called Eco Enclose out of Colorado, and these people are amazing. Anything you want to ship, they have the box, they have the stuffing, they have the plastic-free tape, they have the recycled poly bags to ship your shirts in. So if you look at a couple of the pictures here, the Luvian box with the person holding it, that's actually a picture from Living Ink Technologies website. So Living Ink Technology is an algae ink company startup in Colorado, and they work really closely with Eco Enclose to start using the algae ink. It's only available in black right now. It's fully compostable. And so Alluvian, I think, go ahead.
Had you ever worked with that kind of ink before? Had you ever heard of that kind of ink?
I had no idea that even existed. That is so cool.
How long ago was this? Because I didn't know this existed either.
This is one of the first boxes that we printed. So this was 3 or 4 years ago, I think. Time is really flying. But it's really exciting because I've been following this company, and I noticed that they were printing these cards, and they were starting to print algae ink in like a green color, and you would print it in a way that part of it would disappear and part of it would stay. It was fascinating to see them evolve as a company, trying something totally new and collaborating with other companies. Like when I talked to Patagonia on the phone one day after, like, just, hey, I need some information, I need to know if we're headed in the right direction, I just called them, and they mentioned be a B corporation, get involved with other people who are doing the same thing so you can share information. And that's certainly what they're doing, Eco Enclose and Living Ink Technology. It's pretty cool. So if you think about it, your box is a marketing piece. So if you're a sustainable brand and you're a plastic-free brand and you're trying to do the best you can for Mother Nature, if your box is printed with algae ink, you should tell people. And so that's what we did.
That's cool. So that's what it is super cool. So that's what the stuff is on the back there. So it's telling.
Yeah, I don't know if you can read it, but it's basically just stating exactly what they're receiving. It's printed with 100% algae ink, and this box
and plastic is free, and all shipping materials, including the envelope, are that's incredible.
And the shredded paper that goes in between is recycled. So they're a really good resource. So when we talk about researching, being eco-friendly and wanting to have all of your product packaging, including your shipping, be sustainable, Eco Enclose made it really easy because they had everything we needed. You didn't have to go find one source for the box,
right?
One source for the tape, one source. They even have shipping labels that are recycled paper. It's pretty cool.
And Jeremy also says, well, yeah, but it also just looks cool, which it does.
Yeah, it's a cool product. I mean, it's a cool brand. So what you're looking at right here is there's a company called Planet Green Printing in California. The guy that owns it, his name is Rob Tosberg, and he's been instrumental in teaching me a lot about hey, you have this need, here's how we can fill it with something that's not plastic. So what you're looking at on the dark background is Olivian's sticker. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's a corn-based plastic. So even the sticker is plastic free. Wow. And the one on the right is the markup or the mock-up for the tamper proof label that goes on the deodorant. And so we had an opportunity to also reinforce 100% plastic free, because if you're looking at the sticker on the deodorant and it looks and feels like plastic, we should probably tell them that it's not plastic, and just to reinforce that. So again, we have our 12-month shelf life and our batch number spot. So when the product is made, John can stamp it because he makes everything by hand.
So had you worked this small before? It was just like a lot of learning all the way across?
Completely a new education, and it was exciting and exhilarating. And every time we met, we were doing something different and kind of breaking some boundaries and trying to decide, hey, let's not do everything like everybody's been doing it. Let's like be different. So there were no chains with working with him.
So can you just talk about, so I've seen the one drawing that John's done. I think there's a couple, but I think this one, was there like a kind of inspiration for that, or was it kind of those dictionary pages, that kind of style of illustration?
I can answer that question perfectly. John Cowan is very big into old botanical prints. And so those tend to inspire a lot of illustration work that we did.
Cool.
Yeah. So I had given a presentation a couple months ago to a community in Canada, and they had asked, after giving this presentation, is there a cost to being eco-friendly? And I said, I'll do some research and I'll do some comparison. And then the more research that I did, the more I realized that it kind of comes down to what you're doing, what your product is, how you're positioning yourself. I think it's not as expensive, or it's not even expensive to be eco-friendly. It's just how you go about it. So working with somebody who's knowledgeable in the space, like calling Eco and Clothes or Eco Products. Eco Products is in Colorado as well, and they work with the food containers. We're all using the to-go food containers so that they're recyclable or compostable, the labels and all those types of things. This is way easier than I think people think it is to be sustainable with your food packaging or your product packaging than ever before, because there's so many companies that realize there's too much plastic in the ocean. We have a problem to solve, and the only way to solve that is to start making products for all these hardworking people in the restaurant industry, people who are making products. Let's make it easy for them to do that, so that's not one more thing for them to do. And if you think about it, I think a lot of people are like us in that they don't like seeing plastic in the ocean. It's hard to look at. And if you think about it, it gives you a really good platform to connect with those people by telling them what you're doing and why you're doing it. So I think you get a bump in your brain recognition. It kind of makes you a little bit different.
But it also is good to know that it isn't as hard as we think it is, or it's maybe not as costly as we think it would be.
Yeah. And if anybody has any questions, if they're looking to move in that space, I'm here to answer any questions. Sharing knowledge, I think we're always stronger together. If we can share knowledge, we're not all out trying to find the answers ourselves. I think maybe the internet is kind of taking that ability away a little bit, but also the internet is great. I don't want to fault it. But as humans, if we're sharing information more, I think we get to that next level of where we want to be a little bit quicker without a lot of hard work.
Okay, so Paul asked a great question. So he says, I found a big obstacle to eco packaging in the printers, often local, who don't want to do anything outside their usual box. I'm sure some of these like printers that you're talking about, the box people and the Planet Green printing, do you think that that's something that they would be willing to talk to some of these other printers to see, or is this you use the guy in California because it kind of washes out? It doesn't.
I've experienced that myself. I try to shop locally whenever possible, and I have reached out to a couple places locally to work on some sustainable packaging options. Then you can tout that the product's made here, it's designed here, it's packaged here. But I didn't get a lot of help, so I ended up staying with those companies in Colorado and California just because they're spewing information to help you, and there's not a lot of resistance. And who knows, maybe someday we'll all be eco-friendly, but for the time being, I've been working with those two companies, and I'm going to be working with a company that's here locally called Better Earth Compost. Very excited about that. I just talked to them last week. They are working with eco products in Colorado to help restaurants have sustainable, compostable food packaging, so that if you think about it, their product is dirt that comes from animal bones and meat, scraps, grains, just about everything but plastic, they compost. So if they can help the restaurants to get rid of the plastic from the get-go, it helps them have a better product in the end. So they're working with eco products in Colorado to provide that type of service for their restaurant clients from the beginning of the loop to the back around to the end of the loop.
So I know Christy Panino's here, and she is, I went to grad school with her, and I've seen some of her student work. She's a teacher in Florida. She teaches, and she is an amazing researcher. You also love this part. You love the research part, that it is, I don't know if everybody loves it. We could probably do a poll and see who is like, no, this sounds like a ton of work. And it is work, but why is this so exciting? Because it's changing the world, or is it exciting for just because you're learning?
I think for me, research is, even outside of the eco-friendly space, research for me is kind of like candy. I just thoroughly enjoy, I grew up without the internet. And when the internet came, it was an encyclopedia to the world at your fingertips. So all that information I would have loved to have as a kid growing up, at your fingertips, you tend to want to take advantage of it. And if you are willing to put some time in and do some research, you can find a lot of juicy morsels that you can use for your clients and set them apart from their competitors.
And also, the more you learn, the more you're worth, because now you're worthy. Everybody's worthy, right? That not
sure.
It doesn't have to do with how much, you know what I mean?
Right. I know.
But it has it because you've learned this, and now other people don't have that knowledge. So if you are a great researcher and you are pulling these things together, this ends up becoming an advantage, and some people will want to work with you because you have this knowledge. But you do have to share that you have that knowledge, right? Amy says it's the more value you can offer. And I just want Christy, she's in all panelists, not all panelists and attendees, but
right.
She said, yes, it is about the process. It's that's the part that's called design, which I think is so true and fitting. Without it, we're not designing, we're just building and making. Not that there's anything wrong with building and making, but really you're helping him build his company the exact way he wanted to do. I feel like in some ways we're dream makers, you know?
It was just a sheer pleasure to get to work with him. He's all set up now, so I don't do a lot of work for him anymore because everything's all designed. But we ended up doing a catalog together, which was great. I got to art direct a lot of pieces, and he tried to make it more into I like a coffee table book. So we interviewed people like this guy named Chris, who's a deep sea diver in Hawaii. He's also a really good friend of ours. So he basically, without tanks, dives to the farthest depths that he can. And to him, the ocean is his peaceful solitude. So he probably doesn't like a lot of plastic floating around. And then there's the Travel Stash Company up in Michigan, where they take people out on camping trips. And he was a huge supporter as well. So we made the catalog into more of a lookbook so that it would last and not get thrown away.
Nice. All right. So if people have questions, we will put all the stuff. This will all be, but you can reach them at Smiley with the EY graphics with an X.com. But I have more questions. So, and man, we are almost out of time, but we'll run through them real fast.
We'll talk in 2 times speed.
Okay. All right. So how did this one client really, or this project really shift the things and change for you and your business?
So I think, as we kind of talked a little bit before our meeting, John Cowan I didn't know people like him existed. And having the opportunity in the Nest co-working space to meet him, it just goes to show you, if you get outside of your own head, the people that you can meet. I would say that he has set the course for the rest of my career, and that I really know what I want to do now. I want to do something where I'm working with people who are doing good things. So our tagline is, we craft brands for people who do good. And so that can be people like Intellihot who do water sustainable, or not sustainable. How would you say that? They're efficient. So like if you go to a stadium, they do water heaters so that we're using less energy. Or can't think off the top of my head. I'll be working with Better Earth. So Better Earth Compost. I am so excited about working with them and the things that we can do together. So I think just meeting him has really opened my eyes to what I can do as a designer, and I can make a living doing something that I love. It's pretty cool.
It's super cool. All right. So even as a kid, we talked about you doodling, but did you always like a good challenge? It does seem like your grandparents kind of embodied that, like, hey, what can we make with these figs or whatever? Yes. So
what's the question?
So I know I'm terrible at this. So did you always like a good challenge, even as a kid?
I think growing up next to them, we didn't really have the opportunity to go to a Walmart or a store. We grew all of our own food. So if something was broken, you fixed it. If you had a cool potato chip tin, you could make it into something that stores flour. My mom did that a lot. I know my grandpa's workshop. My grandpa was a tinkerer and an inventor, and his garage was always the coolest place because it was organized with baby food jars, screws in each thing. He was so smart, and he also fixed TVs and watches. And so all of his containers that held parts weren't like you went to the store and bought a plastic container to hold a part. It was a reused vessel from something from the kitchen, or just something that you had a product in that you just reused the vessel.
I love that. And Rosemary said, Dee's much more than a designer. She really partners with clients to help develop their business with help. I am not a good reader, clearly. She partners with their clients to help develop their business with the help from your design. So you're doing some strategy with them as well. You're helping them, and that's where the research comes in, because it is, I believe, like what Christy was saying, design is not just in making it look good, right? It's also in making the business stronger.
Building that strong foundation so you know where you're going.
All right. So for him, for you particular, as you make this shift, and I think he kind of opened the door, because we've talked about him being kind of like the type of entrepreneur that you now want to go after. So now that you see, we always do, like, or a lot of us will do ideal customer personas or something. So what about him now do you have as check boxes to see? I know you're doing good, but how else do you vet somebody? And why do you make these lists? Or do you know what I mean? What about him? Yeah.
So John and John was working for a company for quite a while until last June. So we went on this road trip through the national parks for 5 weeks just to have a reset button. He joined the studio. we said to ourselves, we don't want to just take any job that comes in the door anymore. Now that we're working together and we have an office in the warehouse district, we're meeting so many people that are doing good things. What is going to be our criteria for having a client? And the number one thing we always say, and I think we figured this out when we were at the Bristol Pinecone Forest in California, we just want to work with people who we could sit down and have dinner with. Just good, normal people. And I think if we can do that, we know that we can collaborate and help them get to where they want to go.
So that's what I like, because it's not necessarily, a lot of people talk about niching, and I think what you've done is niche. You talk about people doing good, but really that could be, it's a really wide range, but you don't have a lot of people who are going to put that much energy and effort into doing the right thing for the earth, right? So one of the things that he said in the beginning, that money was no option, or whatever, the money was no option. We will not be paying you or for any of these products.
Oh, I would have worked for free, definitely, with him. I never told him that.
Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed it that much, but I'm also glad you got paid. But right. Maybe that budget wasn't the focus. It was really about doing good for the environment or doing good for the people, that we wanted the best thing possible. Right?
Right. So taking the money off the table. I mean, I always had that in the back of my mind. I would never go be extravagant with the client's money because I know they could spend it in other places, but not having that constraint. And the only constraint being don't use plastic. And I'm not a huge fan of plastic to begin with. It was an amazing gift to get as a designer.
Yeah.
You can just hit the ground running.
So I love this kind of dinner idea with this money. They say you can get anything on the menu. You go to this really nice restaurant and there's a $100 meal, and then the salad, the side salad, which is $20 or something, right? Instead of just going for the cheap, you still are gonna, you might not go with the $100, but you're gonna get something that is somewhere, I don't know, maybe that's a terrible analogy. Anyway, we'll move on. Do you know what I mean?
Now I'm hungry.
But do you know what I mean? Like, it's from one end, it's like go all out, spend everything, or you do it so frugally that it misses something. But I think there's lots of places in the middle that, with enough research and with enough digging and asking, which leads me to the next question, is there are things that you've had to do that were uncomfortable, maybe just because you were quiet, but you did them, you got over them, but you didn't necessarily have to do them when you were running your business before, like calling the guy from Patagonia.
Yeah, that was so cool. So working with John and learning all of this sustainable information, I thought, who best to talk to but the leader in doing the right thing, and that's Patagonia. So I just jumped on a phone call and somebody picked up, and he was obviously a Patagonia person. He was very personable. He was very kind. He gave me about a half hour of his time. And I think in speaking to him, a few things that stuck in my mind was always do good. If you can weave that into your positioning statement, always do good. Learn from your mistakes and share knowledge with people, no matter, even if they're competitors, share that knowledge. And I thought that was some really good takeaways, and we try to blend that into who we are as a company today.
All right, so you've had a lot of growth in the last 4 years, a lot of changes in the last 4 years.
For sure.
And you've made steps, you've called people that you wouldn't necessarily call, you've done things, you've tried things that you wouldn't necessarily do. You also have, that's why there's stickers to give away, people. The more you type in the chat, the more options you have to win.
Nobody wants any stickers, Diane. Nobody wants any stickers.
It's lit up over there for sure. But my mom will always say, wow, people are really typing over there in the chat. That's what she'll tell me later. Anyway, I think it's funny. I'm not making fun of you, Mom. I love you. See, save the bees. Anyway, there's lots of really good stickers in this pack. But there's another part that you, your kids were out of school or out of high school, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't like you were having to watch tiny little kids. So you were able to do more. And what was another thing that really was a pivotal part? And I know what your answer is. If you don't know what I'm talking about,
No,
I
I
can
do.
give
I
you
do.
okay.
So I just don't like to interrupt. So I would say a pivotal point was when I started working at the co-working space, I also did an organic search for a group that I could be a part of, because even though I was joining a co-working space, there weren't a lot of designers. So it's mostly people who code, like my husband. And so we don't always collaborate very well because they're kind of nerdy and I'm kind of a hippie. And so we have different love languages, right? So I did an organic search for groups that do stuff like what you and I do, Diane, and I came across Christo. So I joined the pro group with the future, and I was on for a couple of years. It got some huge mindset changes that shifted a lot. The pro group got a little big for me, and so I ended up joining your group, which has been more intimate, and have made many very good friends who I can't imagine where we'd be today without them. So I would say if you're working alone, this is my advice: don't work alone all the time. You only have one brain. And if you can be with many brains from time to time, it's super helpful.
And I also think bringing in somebody different perspective
Sure.
on, as we read books or as we see an article or see a video, see what somebody else got from it. I think sometimes when we're in our own bubble, we can't see some of those things, and we need to be challenged because that means we're growing for sure.
And have people that won't tell you what you want to hear. Have people
Oh,
who are okay with hurting your feelings, like, hey, your website isn't great. You should probably do something about that because you're a website designer.
well, that was a rough power station. I know, I remember who I was talking to right after, but maybe it was Dustin or
It was
Doc.
Dustin. Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know if she's coming back.
yeah. I don't know if she's coming back after that one. But so Lily says she teaches in a vacuum. No one else teaches what I do in my school and gets lonesome sometimes. Lily, I have a teacher that's in Georgia that I want to connect you with. She also teaches graphic design. So remind me, and I'm going to get you in touch with her.
There you go.
Her. And
there
we,
you
I
go.
guess, are killing your husband because
Are we? That's too bad. I'm sorry.
You'll have to get that thing that he keeps saying he's going to get in this COVID. What, that ditch digger thing?
Let's not go there.
A backhoe? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So, all right, these are the last ones, the fast ones. And look, Mom, we're not going to be like that far over. Okay, how do you recharge? And I know because you fill out a sheet for me every week. Well, not every week, but almost every week.
I know I'm bad this week. So for me, recharging means hanging out with people like Diane Gibbs and my group and my kids and my husband, gardening, just trying to try different things with growing our side business, which is the merch business, doing the stickers and the t-shirts. We're going to be joining the farmers market here locally. So just trying to cast many nets like our friend Andrew Nguyen. He's the leader of our co-working space here. He's been really helpful. So, yeah.
I love that. Did you know that I used to sell my vegetables at a farmer's market?
So did I when I was a kid.
No, this was like a few years ago, and I remember I was call my mom, and I'd be like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, I made $125." She's like, and I remember her saying this to me. She's like, "Diane, don't you make more than that doing your designs?" And I was like, "Yes, Mom, lots." And I guess because it just didn't feel like I did anything for that, except pick it.
Money isn't always success.
That's absolutely.
You've taught us that well.
That for sure. Okay, so then we know how you recharge. What inspires you?
I think people who are trying to do something amazing in the world to help other people, but don't normally need to tell people they're doing it. They're just doing it. That I think is is pretty cool.
That is cool. All right. So Lily wants to know, what will you be doing at the farmer's market? This is a great question.
I will be selling my merch, which is my soft graphic tees.
Why
do
you have? Oh, it's over there. I can see it.
Stretchy. This is
and they are soft. I wore mine last week too.
This is my favorite one. It reminds me of growing up and just our grandparents sharing knowledge and stories with us. So we'll have that and the koozies and the stickers. And then I just ordered sketchbooks. So hopefully have those too.
All right. Next question. You got 2 more. Of course, the farmer's market is kind of the what's next too.
Sure.
Is there a quote or something that you keep close to help you get through tough times?
There is. So we're members here at our local museum, the Peoria Riverfront Museum. And they have before COVID, they had the Leonardo da Vinci exhibit. And there was a quote on the wall that really stuck with me as a designer. You know, as a kid growing up and not always fitting into the school system, or maybe not feeling like you're included all the time, this kind of helped me a lot. So there are 3 classes of people: those who see when they're shown, and those who do not see. And the last one is especially important because it's, as a designer, I think everybody can see how things can be, but knowing that that isn't always the case gives you some understanding that that's okay.
It's really good. Super true too. Okay. Last one is what's next. So we know you're going to do, so not only are you design, you really just today focused on your design and that part of the business, but you actually have also, this has been another pivot, is just adding this stuff in. You were really inspired from that trip last year.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
And you want to tell them a little bit about that?
Yeah. So that trip last year, John working at a company for, I think it was 31 years, and his job being outsourced to another country, we're like, okay, what do we do now? We took that trip and we're like, this is crazy. But being on that trip with our son was really kind of eye-opening. And so you're going through national parks like one every 2 days and driving from like 6 to 12 hours a day and not having internet in a lot of places and pulling out a map, you can get really back to basics in that way. So I was a little stressed thinking we're going to run out of gas and we're out in the middle of nowhere. So I'm like drawing everything I'm experiencing. And those drawings have become what you see today in our merchandise. So I just happened to do some stickers to give to people to just share some love with people. And John said, I really love those. How about we have 3,000 shirts printed with all of those designs? And I said, sure, let's do it. And here we are. Loving every minute of it though.
Do you think you would have said that? Sure, let's do it. 5 years ago?
No.
Because
I don't think so. Why didn't I do it 5 years ago? Why did it take him losing his job and us going on that trip to come up with something that just did nice things for people?
So Dave Coe was like, where is John Ingles? Just off camera. So he popped in and he waved.
He's guarding the door. He's guarding the door so nobody comes in.
Oh, that's too funny. That was too funny. Okay. He's been very quiet, your chatty Cathy husband back there.
I know. I warned him. Please don't talk.
He could have gotten up and given you that. Okay. So it's time. This is a benefit of coming live, right? So the more if you're listening or you're watching on YouTube, you can always come live and you can actually ask questions. I'm not just weird and making these people's questions up. They're actually here in the chat. So it's a beautiful part. It's really a community. So I like to know where people are popping in from. Anyway, so I said that I was gonna choose. I'm gonna scroll back and forth through the chat, and then you guys are gonna, or not, y'all have already typed it in. Dave, you better type it in a little bit more, buddy, because
let's do 3. Let's do 3.
3 packs. Okay, yeah. It can't be the same person. And John Ingles, you can't win. But okay, here we go. You're going to tell me any minute. Go ahead and tell me when. Just tell me when to stop.
Now.
Okay, Rachel Zampino, you're the first winner. Okay. And if you're if you win, I'll write it down too, but I need your address, your physical address. But if you email me, I will get it to Dee. Okay. Ready?
Now.
It's Rachel again. Rachel. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. She's been very busy. Okay. Keep going.
Now.
Jeremy Rivers. Okay, I know Jeremy, and but I don't. Well, no, he's not here anymore. But it's still okay. I have his.
It's okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Oh, whoops.
One more? Let's do 2 more.
Okay, 2 more. Tell me when.
Now.
Amy Lyons.
Okay, and 1 more.
Okay. Tell me when.
Now.
Oh, it was John Ingles. That doesn't work. I know, boogers. Hey, you won, John. I'm just kidding.
Okay, go.
Oh, Dave Coe.
Okay, cool. All right, sticker packs coming your way. We just need your addresses.
Whoop, whoop. Hey, good job. Yay. Lots of people. Anyway, I'm super excited. Rasheen was like me. Lily's like me. Lily was really putting it in. But I think they'll be available at your local farmer's market sometime soon. So I want to make sure everybody, if you are listening or watching or not that you're not, you know what I mean. You can, underneath, you'll be able to see all these links, but I'm also going to put them in the chat. But this is a way for you to contact Dee or talk to the merchandise. You can get your shirt. I wore my shirt last week. One of them. I have 2. I think I have a share stories, and I have the one that was the We Are Stronger Together. All right, here we go. Oh, Jacob's beating me out.
He is the
buddy.
man.
Hey, I got more than you even think of. I got LinkedIn. You can't get it that fast. I'm putting it in there, buddy. He's probably like,
get him.
I got it.
Get her, Jacob.
All right. If you want to check out their website, or you want to consult, you have a project like this, it's sgraphics, graphics.com. And if you go to, I think if you type in Smiley Graphics also with the EY, it gets you there, right? I think it's just a forwarded. Yes. And then also the store is at shop, not at, just shop. Shop.sgraphics with an X.com. And then on Instagram, it's S_graphics studio, the X graphics. And then on their store also has a Instagram account. It's SGS_merch, MERCH. And then on LinkedIn, I love her, you can do a vanity handle or whatever. I love this. Hers is CMYK girl. Love it. And just so my mom knows, that's cyan, magenta, yellow, black. Mom, it's the way the printing anyway. It's geeky. That's how we geek out, right?
Yeah.
And then there's also on the studio also has a LinkedIn at Smiley SMILEY -graphics with an X. All right. And John's putting things in. I got that one in, buddy. It's up there.
She's a perfectionist. Those coding people,
I guess you just wanted it in every time. That's okay. Dee, thank you so much for teaching us. Also, just for being such a great researcher and letting it fuel you and letting the challenge just really light you up. And I just thank you for sharing the story. Thank you for sharing that struggle of having to call Patagonia or having to figure all this out. And actually, it ended up really lighting you up. And I think sometimes we avoid things that are uncomfortable, but boy, if you just lean in, they can really be amazing. So
yeah, that's the biggest thing I think I've learned from you. Lean into uncomfortable, because great things can happen.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you one thing about me leaning into uncomfortable, which just happens that Dee and John, the whole Smiley Graphics team, is one of the sponsors for I'm like, what the hell is my camp called? It's Creatives Ignite. I don't know what I was talking about. So Creatives Ignite is open. The early bird tickets are on sale now. And Dee has a link she can share as well. If you go to Creatives Ignite, just regular ignite.com, not like nighttime night, but anyway, whatever. You guys, it'll be in the chat or it'll be underneath. Creativesignite.com. Check it out. Early bird, you can get your happy camper ticket for the day camper price until Friday. It'll really go through Saturday, but you guys can share that.
And there'll be swag.
And there will, yes, you're gonna get something in the mail from me if you're a happy camper. And just so you know, this is what it is. If you're ready to grow your business, you need to get more leads. If you've been thinking, oh, I want to do kind of what Dee did. I want to focus in. I want to do something specific. I want to have a more targeted audience. Well, if you don't already have that, some of these people that are going to be talking to you are going to help you with that. But mostly it's about different ways to reach these people, hone in on who these people are, different, there's going to be ways to retain them once you have them, all these things that we can do to help keep them happy and over deliver. And then the other part that's really important for solopreneurs or entrepreneurs is that we need to have a mindset shift in a lot of things. We maybe are talking bad to ourselves. We are limiting what we think we can do because either somebody else said it or we just haven't dreamed big enough. So it's 5 weeks. It is 5 weeks of content. It's what I'm asking you to do is to change your business in a month. And it's a 60-day money back guarantee. So if you do all the homework and you're like, nope, I didn't learn anything, I want all my money back, I'm going to give you your money back. So here's the thing. It is Monday through Friday, an hour. I'm asking you to commit to an hour minimum, an hour a week, an hour a day, not an hour a week. Oop, not unless you watch it in really fast mode, you could probably do it. I don't know, be really fast mode, like 5x, but you're going to watch the video. It's 30 minutes and then you're going to implement for 30 minutes. And then there's some bonus things for the happy campers and the trailblazers. The happy campers and the trailblazers, they get the community aspect. So there's a Slack channel, there's a Wednesday night group, which Demi, it's probably too late for you. It's at midnight. But there is a Saturday group as well. So the people maybe in Australia or the people in Indonesia or on the other side of the world, they could come to the Wednesday one. It'll be Thursday for them, but it'll be Wednesday for us. The Wednesday one. And then on Saturday, Demi, it's at 4 p.m. your time, buddy, in London. And then for those people, so that's every week, we're doing 2 groups, 2 meetups. And that it's just time for us to be together. We'll break into small groups. We're going to talk about what we've learned. So then there's some accountability and hopefully you've been doing the work. And then on Saturday, July 18th, Dave Clayton's going to do a workshop, a live workshop where we'll go into groups, we'll do some work, we'll come back out, we'll do some big work, and then we'll go into small groups again. It's going to be incredible. I have no idea how it's going to go. Have no idea, people, but it's going to hopefully be amazing. It's the way I dream it. It's the way I see it, but I actually think that you're going to get something out of it. I think when we do work, Dee and I have talked about this, when you focus in on your business, I mean, we do these little sprints that are 12 weeks, right? This is 5 weeks. This is almost half of that, but it's every day. Instead of just doing once a week, we're actually doing some of the same things every day. And I've already started implementing some of the things that I'm learning from these people. So I'm getting a heads up, right? And there will definitely be some extra content for sure. So Lily asked, do you think this would benefit me as a teacher? I actually think teaching graphic arts is and not design, more behind the press projects than design. I don't know. I think this is, there's a lot of, it would be stuff that you would be teaching them, your students, maybe about self-promotion. and about how they can understand an audience. So it's all things that you would be able to use. So I always think that stuff is very important. And I think that a lot of times that stuff is lacking. And I teach at the college level, and I definitely include this stuff, even though nobody asks me to. It's the business side that I feel like sometimes we are really missing out on. But we have people like Chris Doe, he's speaking, Mike Janda, Gay Hendricks. I know you guys probably don't know who he is, but he's a big psychologist, and he's been writing 40 books for years and changed the face of a lot of people in the way they think. So big mindset. There's Bonnie saying, there's lots of people maybe you haven't heard of, but they have gold, because gold isn't just on the surface, people, and everybody knows about it. So some of the people, not that I think everybody has gold, to be honest. I know I'm just running on and on. My mom's going to be like, oh my goodness, Diane, at the end. But anyway, I just am really excited about it. So 30 minutes a day of listening, watching, learning, right? And then 30 minutes of implementation to grow your business in 5 weeks. Can we do this? We could do this. You could do this. I'm trying to make it super easy. So if anybody has any questions, please let me know. You can email me at diane@rechargingyou.com. You can also check it out at Creatives Ignite, creatives with an S, ignite.com. So if you're ready to ignite your business, check it out. Come to camp with us. A lot of my friends over in the UK, they didn't do camp, so they're real excited about doing camp. So I'm excited too.
Yeah, come be with the cool kids.
That's right. All right, guys. Thank you. And Dee, thank you so much. And thanks for John for holding the door. I greatly appreciate his bouncer status back there.
Yeah, and we need all those addresses from the winners.
Yes.
Mail those out tomorrow.
Okay. All
Thanks.
right. We'll see you on the, Holly Chastain's next week. It's a collage artist. You know I love collage. This lady's amazing. I can't wait. She's a designer turned collage artist. So I can't wait to introduce you to her. She's an illustrator. Anyway, we'll see y'all next week.